Alright, time to review a movie about wizards and witches. Oh, no, not that one. That's for tomorrow. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy back with another video for Studio Ghibli Month. And today we'll be reviewing Miyazaki's follow-up to Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle. And joining me in this review is special guest, longtime friend, and a man that I truly look up to here on YouTube and consider to be the best reviewer on YouTube, Mike from Reel School. And I'm gonna let him do his review first, and then I'm gonna share my thoughts about the film. So take it away, Reel School.
Howl's Moving Castle is a quirky, fast-paced epic about a young girl named Sophie who lives in a world of magic. Now one day, she's inexplicably cursed by a snooty witch to become an old woman. But in this world of magic, the world actually reflects our world and the politics that we live in. Some witches are evil and only think of themselves, and some wizards help the greater good. Howl is one wizard who's just like that. He might have a bad reputation, but he actually helps Sophie along the way. He's quite charming, and he fights for the greater good instead of just himself. I really love the world that Miyazaki has created here, and not just the juxtaposition of the normal world with the wizard world. I actually like the whole look of the movie. It's a really cool 19th century period piece mixed with a lot of steampunk machinery, and of course, Miyazaki puts his own amazing creative spin on the whole thing. Now, speaking of putting Miyazaki's spin on things, the screenplay was written by him as well, and it's actually a metaphor for how he felt about the Iraq War. He wasn't a fan of the US conflict in the early 2000s, and so hid that subtext within the movie using magic as a metaphor. Miyazaki actually thought that it would do poorly in the US as a result, but I guess he wasn't counting on the strength and beauty that the rest of the story brings to the entire film. And the fact of the matter is, any audience can get behind this beautiful story. The film explores a second subtext as well, and that's actually shining a positive light on one's elderly years. When we see Sophie at the beginning of the film, she's kind of downtrodden. She's missing something in her life, and that's actually a common aspect to a lot of Studio Ghibli films. But when she becomes cursed, she becomes older, and she realizes her life has much more freedom to it all of a sudden. As I mentioned before, a youthful protagonist with something missing in their life is something quite common in a Studio Ghibli film, and the fact is, it attracts all of us, the elderly, the middle-aged, the youthful, and the kid in all of us, because we understand that pain. The film is written with such beauty that Sophie becomes a real character regardless of her age, and you actually relate to her almost the entire film. Miyazaki actually admitted that Howl's Moving Castle is his favorite creation, and I think we can all see why. It's fun but poignant, it's dark and scary and yet light and beautiful, and the story attracts anybody of any age. And in my books, that's an earn it.
Now I'll be honest with you guys, the first time I saw Howl's Moving Castle, I found it to be overrated. I mean, people were praising the crap out of it, saying that it was Miyazaki's best film and that it was leagues better than Spirited Away, which at the time I saw it was my favorite Miyazaki film. So I was like, oh really? There's a film that's even better than Spirited Away? Okay, I guess I gotta go check it out. And I have to say, the hype really killed the movie for me, because everyone put it on such a high pedestal that it would never meet my lofty expectations, and so I found it to be overrated. But fast forward a few years later, I finally rewatched it again, and I will say, although I don't think that it is better than Spirited Away, it is still a masterfully made and beautiful film, which honestly shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. After all, it's a Miyazaki film. Everything that Reel School expressed in his portion, I agree with 100%. The animation is top notch once again. It should go without saying, Miyazaki has a keen eye for spectacular visuals and larger than life settings. Every single one of his films have these, and the colors truly pop out in this film. There's a scene where you have our two main characters in a field of flowers. It's probably one of the most gorgeous scenes I've seen in a Miyazaki film. And I just love the overall look and style of Howl's Moving Castle. Very European, which makes a lot of sense as Miyazaki based a lot of the architecture and the looks of the characters to European architecture, primarily French architecture. And I love the look of the moving castle. It's clearly CGI, but it doesn't really feel like it's CGI. It doesn't look like it's CGI. It actually reminds me a lot of how the Ohms from Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind look like. You clearly know it stands out compared to all the other things in the film, but it just has such a distinct look and it feels like it fits with the film. And now it's time for our favorite part of the review where I talk about the English dub done by Disney. It's solid in this film. The voice actors did well with their performances, their pitches were on point, they conveyed a lot of emotions and added a lot of personality to their characters, and the ADR work has vastly improved compared to The Cat Returns. The voices actually match the mouth movements. The only nitpick I have for this dub, and it's a personal reason, is I didn't like the choice of Christian Bale for Howl and Emily Mortimer for Sophie, and both for the same reason. I just thought they both sounded way too old for the characters that they were portraying. I mean, Emily Mortimer is like in her 30s when she was voicing this character, yet this character looks like she's in her late teens, early 20s, and I felt like she needed a much more softer voice. And Emily Mortimer's voice is way too distinct and a bit grainy and rough. Same goes for Christian Bale. I mean, he was in his late 30s when he was voicing this character, and when I look at Howl, I look at a very innocent young man, and I mean, that's basically what his character's like, but he doesn't sound like that. He sounds a bit too gruff, like he's in his late 40s or something like that. And keeping in line with the Miyazaki formula, the story here is thought-provoking and very entertaining. Now, Reel School already touched upon the anti-war aspect of the film, excellently so, might I add, so I won't delve into that any further. Instead, I'll discuss something that he didn't bring up in his part, and that's the adventure aspect of the story, which all Miyazaki films have an adventure aspect, and for me, that's the part that I always enjoy the most. Just seeing these vast lands, all these zany characters, and the places that they go to. And Howl's Moving Castle definitely has one of the stronger adventure stories of any Miyazaki film. I mean, come on, it's a story about a young girl that gets turned into an old hag by a vindictive witch and sets out on a journey to find a way to break the curse, and along the way bumps into Howl's Moving Castle, meets all of these zany characters, and gets roped into a lot of misadventures. What's not to love? And finally, the characters, each of which were intriguing, engaging, and quite complex. From our main characters, as Reel School stated in his part, to our supporting characters, to the antagonists of the film. And something I absolutely adored in this film that I also loved in both Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away is that the antagonists in this film aren't just these one-note cliche bad guys that are doing it for power or wealth or just being evil for evil's sake. No, there's moral ambiguity to their actions. They're multi-layered. They're driven by their own emotions and passions. And I love to see multi-layered villains, and Miyazaki does these types of characters so well. Now, I'm not denying or even vindicating the heinous acts that the antagonists do in this film. What they do is pretty messed up. It's pretty malicious. But you understand the reasoning behind the action. It's not just some cliche thing like, I want power, I want money, watch me twirl my mustache. It's not like the villain in Castle of the Sky who just wanted to find Laputa so he could become the most powerful man in the world. No. Again, there's many layers to these characters, a lot of conflicting emotions as to why they do the things that they do. And like Reel School, I also liked our two leads of Howl and Sophie. What I found so fascinating about Howl is I felt like he was the personification of the corruption of the innocent. A man that was so driven by his cause and believing in doing the right thing, but was slowly getting consumed by the evil and magic that surrounded him, the corruption that surrounded him. And it's presented both figuratively and quite literally, with him turning into a beast as the movie goes on. As for Sophie, what I found so interesting about her character is that even before she was cursed, she was already acting like an old woman. She stayed inside most of the time, working on her hats, rarely went out with her sisters or her mother. She was letting her life pass her by. It's only when she was turned into an old woman that she actually started journeying out, exploring, expanding her horizons, and having a new outlook on life. And I really dug Howl and Sophie's relationship. It's cute, it's sweet, I actually felt a connection between them, and I felt like they completed each other. You know, they gave each other something to latch onto, something to drive them. I also really enjoyed Calcifer in the film. Not only does he look freaking cool, I mean, he's a magical talking fire demon. What's not to love about that? but he's also quite funny. He has a lot of funny lines throughout the film, and I think that could be attributed to Billy Crystal, as he's just a naturally funny dude. Now guys, this next part's gonna be a bit of a toughie, as this is a legitimate issue / critique I have with Howl's Moving Castle. But upon further reflection, I've come to realize that maybe, just maybe, that's what they were trying to go for. You know, they did this on purpose, as the film in its entirety is an allegory to a real life event, and the things that transpire in the film damn near mirror the things that happened in the real life event. So they were just staying faithful to it. So is it really a critique on the film, or is it a critique on the real life event? Because they were just following it faithfully. And what, pray tell, am I vaguely hinting at? Well, that would be the conclusion to Howl's Moving Castle. Not the end where it leaves off on a very happily ever after note. I'm talking about the way that they resolve the conflict that happens in the film. As many of you know who have seen the film, there's a war that goes on throughout the duration of this film. And by its end, the way that they concluded, the way that the war ends, just made me go, really? That's how this war ends? Like, that's how we come to a resolution? That's kind of underwhelming, and it's kind of hard. It makes it feel like all the fighting, all the warring, everything that was happening in the film kind of felt very pointless and trivial and kind of petty. And then when I said that to myself, I'm like, but isn't that exactly what the Iraq War was? After all, Howl's Moving Castle is an allegory to the Iraqi War, which was a very pointless war that caused a lot of pointless death. And so in this film, there's also a very pointless war that caused a lot of pointless deaths, a lot of pointless damages, and it does end on a rather unfulfilling note, as did the Iraqi War. So I was torn, because it was so faithful to the real life event, but at the same time, as a narrative, it just isn't a satisfactory conclusion. So I was battling between myself, like, do I base it off of the narrative, or do I base it off of the allegorical comparison? And if I have to say, you know, I'm gonna say both. On a narrative basis, this is a weak way to conclude the conflict, and I just felt like it was kind of shoddy and petty. But it's excellent when you compare it on an allegorical sense, because it's so faithful that it made me start questioning whether or not it was a bad thing. And with that said, overall, Howl's Moving Castle is a masterfully made animated film. And while I don't think that it's better than Spirited Away or even Princess Mononoke, it's still a great film made by an incredible director with a keen eye for visuals and storytelling. And how could I possibly not give it a 5 out of 5 stars? It is an epic masterpiece, and it must be seen. But as always, guys, we're not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to Howl's Moving Castle. We would love to know what you guys thought about the film as well. Did you absolutely adore it? Is this your favorite Studio Ghibli film, favorite Miyazaki film? Or did you find it really boring and dull, just put you to sleep and you really didn't care about it? And let me know, who is the most fascinating villain in a Studio Ghibli film? Comment below, let me know, and I want to take this time to personally thank my boy Michael from Reel School for joining me in this review. It was such an honor to have you in one of my videos, and for Studio Ghibli month no less. Please go check him out. He is literally my favorite movie reviewer here on YouTube. Nobody, and I mean nobody, does movie analysis better than Michael from Reel School. Go check him out, send him some love, and make sure that he's no longer the best kept secret here on YouTube. Stay tuned, more Studio Ghibli month reviews, more movie reviews, gonna be reviewing Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. In fact, I'm probably at the movie theater right now watching it, so stay tuned for that review. And as always, guys, if you'd like to support the Black Critic Guy just a smidge more, why not donate to my Patreon? Link is in the description. And if you'd like to send me any fan letters, which I will be reading later on today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, why not send it to this P.O. box right up here. And as always, guys, if you would like to see more videos on this channel and not miss out on a single Studio Ghibli month review and be a part of the Black Critic crew, please hit that subscribe button below, like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm Tony Watt II, the wizard, known as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube!